Hello and welcome to episode number 119 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio, streaming wherever you stream your podcasts, also live on the radio every Saturday at 3 o'clock. We have a fantastic show for you today, starting off with an interview that I am very, very excited to share with everyone. We'll get into that shortly. Also going to recap the top 5 stories of 2022, both in esports and in gaming, leading up to next week's show, the 2022 Wiz Wit Awards. We'll be back next week, my top 10 games of the year, plus a segment of specialty awards, just like I have done the last 2 years. Will this be the year that a non-Square Enix game takes Game of the Year at the Wiz Wits? 2020, the first year this podcast ever existed, it was Final Fantasy VII Remake. 2021, it was the shock Guardians of the Galaxy. And now 2022, we will see what happens. But before we get into that, we have to do this episode. And I'm about to introduce our first segment, which is an interview with Pedro Flute Guy Eustache from the Game Awards last Thursday. Took the internet by storm with his energy and his drive from playing the flute and other wind instruments in the orchestra for Game of the Year and otherwise. But I do want to put one quick disclaimer on this. So I went back and listened to the audio after we recorded, Pedro and I, and there's a moment where he talks about he's talking about flutes, and then all of a sudden he goes silent, and I go silent for a second, and I talk about how he's really laying into his flute. He actually played a little bit for me, but it did not come through the audio. So and it's a shame too, because man, you could feel every note he was playing. I wish it had come through. So I just wanted to make sure that you all understood that when it gets to that point and it goes silent, you are not imagining things. Nothing's wrong with your device. It was a mishap with the recording over Zoom. And hopefully the next time he and I get to talk to each other, as I assume we will, based on how this one went, there will be he can play a little bit for us, and we can enjoy his talent. So without further ado, Pedro Eustache interview. Here it is. Enjoy. All right, yes, here is our first segment on Cheesesteaks and Controllers this week. We all watched the Game Awards. We all saw the awards given out, the trailers that played, all the pomp and circumstance. But if there is one person that took the internet by storm during this event, no, it's not the person at the end. I'm talking about something a little bit earlier in the show. It was a man and his flute, and they became the internet's favorite musician, still talked about a week later. And I am fortunate enough to have the Flute Guy right here with me, Pedro Eustache. We're going to talk about that performance. We're going to talk about music, and we're just going to have a little jam session right here on Cheesesteaks and Controllers. Pedro, my friend, how are you today?
Thank you, Jason. I'm doing great. I got my 3rd COVID shot this morning.
Yes, full new information download.
Yeah.
I love that.
That is fresh. And Jason, I cannot thank you enough. This is really weird to me. This whole thing that happened.
That was actually my first question. How has this? Like you became an overnight sensation, just for doing what you have done your whole life.
Exactly correct.
How do you feel now versus last Wednesday before the performance even happened? You were just thinking you were going to another day at the office.
What a great question. And I hope I can answer this in a way that is absolutely truthful, because there's no other way I can be. I'm still processing this.
Makes sense.
But you know, if there's something I've learned in life, and I know the Creator really, I'm a follower of Christ. I'm a very strong believer. Something I have learned a long time ago is I have at my very core, and that's not being religious or any of that. It's just my reality. Really,
Sure.
is I need to be humble, no matter what, no matter what, no matter what. And I see this as not something that I need to get a big head or big ego or any of that. That would be stupid, really, and immature. I see it as an opportunity that the creator maybe is allowing for me to reach more people with an incredibly powerful and positive story that might affect people positively in times which are very, very heavy, very difficult, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this morning I was talking to the lady who because my wife also got the flu shot, which I got like 3 weeks ago. And the lady, we're talking about, LA is so beautiful, man. Today is a beautiful, beautiful sunny day. And she was saying, yeah, it's beautiful here, but it's so expensive. And I'm going like, wow, not that I'm rich or anything, but I'm going like, yeah, there are a lot of people suffering in this thing. There's a lot of people still, have not recovered. And she has a job. So I cannot even imagine how so many other people are struggling these days. And this for me is a golden opportunity to be able to take that, whatever you call it, being viral, whatever. I don't even know what name it is, because for me, recognition or whatever, that doesn't mean anything in the sense of changing who I am.
Sure.
I will never change. That I am who I am. What you see is what you get, no matter what. And it's simply, I believe, is an opportunity to, again, reach people and affect people for betterness, so to speak. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, of course, it absolutely does. It's taking this newfound fame, however fleeting or however long it may be, and trying to create a positive outcome from it, which I think is very honorable. I think more people who get into this position should try to do something like that. So I'm 100% with you on that. I want to ask you about, you had mentioned in the interview, if you haven't read it, there's a great interview on The Verge that Pedro did with another great writer, Ash Parrish, came out earlier this week. And she had asked you about where video game music stands in your perception versus like movie music or television music, because you have recorded a lot of that as well. And your answer was just music is music. It all kind of flows together. Would you say then that video game sound like scores and soundtracks like these have come a long way from the olden days of like,
holy moly, of course. Listen, Jason, some people say now that this thing is even bigger than movies.
Yeah, it's getting there if it's not already there. That's true.
And
That's very true.
I'm old enough, although here in my heart and in my soul, I am 20 and I will never change. And that's a choice. And that's why I can play and rock those flutes the way I did.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm not faking it. That's the way I feel, really. That I just exercise my purpose, and it fills me with immeasurable joy. Really, really. The thing is, I'm old enough that I remember the bleeps and bloops.
Yeah, that's right.
And they were interesting, to say the least.
Yes. Back in those days, music was a lot different. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. To hear what I'm hearing now, I played in this concert live for Genshin Impact.
Yes, yes.
I'm one of the soloists in there. There's 7 soloists, and I'm like, holy moly. Then I listened to that Casanti champion theme that I played contrabass flute, and I played a tambing. That's something that's new for you.
There it is.
Yeah. I've never said this to anyone, and it's an incredible piece, and it's all over YouTube. Check that out. It's Casanti's new champion theme, and I played this African flute called Fula flute, which is my it's a transverse flute.
Yeah.
You have to sing at the same time that you play some.
Interesting. He's really rocking this flute.
Also, first day for you as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No, this is all over this. So when I'm hearing this thing with a full orchestra behind me, it is so epic.
Yeah.
What we did at the Game Awards, you could hear this. We have this orchestra that is the fourth time I'm playing with them,
Okay.
and it's just holy moly. If I compare that to what I heard when the whole genre, the whole subculture started, it's of course leaps and bounds of holy moly,
Now,
amazing.
from a complexity standpoint, as far as the theory of the music you're playing, getting into like the nitty gritty, do you find it to be surprisingly more complex? Like when someone said to you, you're going to be playing video game music, were you expecting the sort of because I feel like this music is difficult to play. It's not like
It is not easy. And again, the advantage I have, Jason, is that I started doing this a long time ago and people do not know this. Like I've been doing this stuff for Blizzard for years,
okay.
probably 15 years or something like that. So some of the adaptations that I had to develop to play what was written, one of the three flutes that I play at the Game Awards is an Irish low whistle head joint, like a mouthpiece, that I adapted into my Western transverse flute. So it becomes an Irish low whistle, but with the body of my Western transverse concert flute. Then I can play all the notes, but it's the sound of an Irish low whistle. I have like 12. In fact, this morning I was making another one.
So
Yeah, an Arabic ney, which is a traditional flute. I was making Arabic ney and it worked. I just finished doing it a few minutes ago into my alto flute because I need to expand now into bigger flutes, those different flutes of the world that I can adapt so I can still have all the notes that we have in a keyboard, for example, and I have in the body of my normal Western, not normal, because everything is normal. That would be really stupid for me to say. But what I mean is the Western flutes, then I can put these different mouthpieces, these different head joints into them, and they become chromatic, meaning that I can play all the notes, but I have the core sound and the phrasing, the way I play, because I studied those traditions.
Sure.
And I can, that in a way partially started because of the work I had to do with Blizzard 15 years ago, 18 years ago. Because what happened, this is very interesting, and I'm going to give you again, this is new for many people, maybe, Jason. I'm very happy. Things are coming to me that I really wanted to give you different new stuff as well. As the instruments are digitized, okay? They're put into sampling libraries and they're played from a keyboard. A keyboard can be all the way to 88 keys, like a piano, okay? So when somebody has the sound of Xiao from China, and they write these things that change tonalities, I cannot play that with a Xiao that has 6 volts only. You see, it's very different. I have hundreds, maybe 600 instruments, not only flutes, but including other things, even electronics as well, and some string, and I play Afro-Venezuelan drums as well, but mostly winds. My point is, I cannot be expected to, with a 5-hole thing, play something that was written, on a keyboard. So I had to find a way to work to solve the problem. So the result was I did research in acoustics, and I've been doing that for over 30 years of my life. And many times I consult. This is fantastic. My journey has been an incredible, beautifully fulfilling thing because it's multi-directional. It's not just sitting to practice an instrument, which is already wonderful. I've done consultations with PhDs, physicians in acoustics, physics people that specialize in acoustics. And one of them was Dr. John Coltman, who was the highest authority in flute acoustics. He was 92 when we did work together in the research. That's the last, And that's the last research he published in the Journal of Acoustics, and he passed away at 96.
Oh, wow.
So, and then I also did with Dr. Peter Hukia, who teaches at a university in near Cleveland, Ohio. And that's how, with the help of these geniuses, scientists, they help me develop the things I need to be able to take something that is made out of cane, number one, that has, like bamboo has this section dividing things that are opened, but that changes the inner chamber of the whole cane thing, and they are conical, to transfer that to something that is metal, completely cylindrical, and it works. And Jason, by God's grace, and this is my, kind of my obsession thing as well. It's the truth. I'm obsessive compulsive. I think it's maybe a family thing that when something is in us, we don't take no for an answer. We need to find solution. And I'm very glad I am not too normal in that sense, because there's amazing consequence. Because now, Jason, I am the only person in the world that I believe that has access to, I have like 12, 13, 14 different mouthpieces, head joints from world flutes that I can adapt into the body of my flute, and I can go to recordings and do these super complex things like you just mentioned of, game music, of course.
Sure. Now, when you were preparing for this past Thursday, obviously you rehearse a couple of times, probably multiple times before you actually take the stage. Did you go and listen to the actual source music as well to get a feel of how it sounded in its source?
Yes, we did. And I don't know if if I am authorized to say the whole thing, but let me rephrase this. Yes, we have an arrangement that is sent to us ahead of time.
Right.
Okay. And let me put it this way. There are production things we do in order to guarantee that what you guys will sound is consistent.
Okay.
So in other words, we do have to prepare for this.
Sure.
And that is what allowed me to go and prepare the low whistle, because when I got the music and I got the PDF, I said, this thing is changing tonalities all the way. I cannot do this with my normal low whistle, in D, because it has 6 holes.
Right.
And this thing has so many other, it would be like having not even a complete white keys only piano. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When I have music that requires all, black and in white keys. So that's why I put that low whistle thing. And that's why I played the bass flute as the rhythmic thing that I did, because this is the beautiful thing. Jason, I am so beyond blessed working with these people in having been established by God's amazing grace in this industry, and working with the huge, incredibly well-established geniuses like John Williams and Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard and John Debney and John Powell and Mark Mancina and so many others. Maybe I left some. Jermaine Franco, who thank you, I remember. Hallelujah. I keep naming Dune that we won, the Oscar this year as the best, soundtrack for movies. Hans Zimmer's
yes.
Soundtrack for Dune, and I keep repeating this, and it's such a blessing to be part of this. And I have not been fair. I've been wrong, because I keep forgetting that another runner-up was Encanto of genius Jermaine Franco.
Yes,
and the first female Latina that ever is nominated for a sound score best Oscar thing, and I'm so proud of her.
Yes.
And I'm so proud that I had 2 incredibly relevant, important friends with incredible work nominated for this thing. One of them had to win, of course.
Sure.
But I realized, and I say, oh man, I thank God that he brought this to my mind. I said, man, you got to honor to who honor is due, and I need to honor Jermaine as well. So all these names, put me in a place that I have to be able to come up with solutions. And by virtue of that, they trust me, Jason.
Sure.
I'm coming back to the question now. And when they send me the music ahead of time, you're not going to believe this. Like for Blizzard, which is different, I'm recording, I have had to make or adapt my instruments to be able to play what they send me ahead of time.
Interesting.
Yes.
See, I wanted to ask you about that too, because you mentioned that.
Let me finish real quick.
Well.
So there, to finish the question, I'm so sorry I'm interrupting them.
No, you're fine.
Speaker is so that's why they at the same time they trust me, which is an amazing thing, you know.
Yeah.
So when Lauren Baffle, who's another genius that I didn't mention, who's our conductor and the guy who did all the arrangements for this medley and everything, God bless him. We've done several movies as well together, and he works obviously with Hans as well, besides being his own man as a composer. Obviously, his instructions were, Pedro, that's the part for a tin whistle. That's the second, and he said, after that, do whatever you want to do. They trust.
There you go.
I said, I'm gonna play a rhythmic bass flute here because that's my thing. That's a part of my vocabulary. That rhythmic thing that you guys saw me do at the Verge little video that Ash shared there. And after the tin whistle, I said this other part is important, but then and that's why I ended up doing 3 flutes. And the funny thing is, I had to learn not only by heart the music, because they had music stands. I said, that's distracting to me. I need to concentrate on this. And every game awards, the same thing happens. The last 3 days before this thing, I'm torturing my wife because I'm listening to this thing over and over and over because I need to know it. And then I had to choreograph when to put an instrument and pick another one up. And Jason, I have something horrible to confess. I'm an absolute idiot. when some of the things were with an instrument, I was still with another one. And heartwarming. It was so heartwarming to see people to go so incredibly, understanding. It's like they still loved me,
Sure.
And that's why I could change. And the last thing I want to say again, real quick, which I'm going to repeat is, and this is complete ignorance of my part. And these are beautiful things because with all this, everything that happened, going viral and whatnot, it's also a very humbling thing because it reminds me of so many things I'm ignorant about.
Mm-hmm.
Since I do not do, video games, as you guys know already, I should have done better homework. I should have searched this thing because obediently, I need to play what they asked me to play. They said, play a tin whistle, and that's what I did. And it sounded beautiful, and that's the way the arrangement was. Then I found out from fans and from followers and gamers that this thing is played with a shinobuye, which is, I'm talking about Xenoblade, which is Japanese flute.
Mm-hmm.
And its story is fascinating because they actually sent to make 2 flutes to play especially for this soundtrack. I don't have those exact flutes, but I have 2 shinobuye. And now I own more. So whenever I'm going to play this in the next future, I'm going to freaking play with shinobuye. Absolutely. So I owe this to the gamers, and I'm going to do it even more right. Still, I think what we did was wonderful, and I stand by it.
Sure. No, it was a wonderful performance. Everything about it was excellent. It's one of my favorite parts of the show, honestly, is when you play that medley.
So many people said that, and I'm so surprised because, Jason, this is funny. We were waiting and waiting and waiting, and people were like, man, he was still all energetic at the end. Yeah, because I was going home finally and spent the whole day there.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. We were so happy because it went so well. Jason, let me tell you this. This is kudos to the production company. Really. I've been doing this thing for 4 years, and I've seen them grow in the production. And I am such a weird perfectionist. I'm a perfectionist in recovery, though, okay? But the thing is, I can see how incredibly professional these guys have been.
Yeah. And
this year, I told them, guys, this is too easy, too perfect. It's like, I hope I don't pay for this later. This is so good.
Yeah.
The level of production was such that it was boom, 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 boom. From every year that we've been doing it, it's been because I think, we have been learning from each other and they know me now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Peter Rotter, I also believe my brother, the contractor, said Pedro's going to be here, situated here. He wanted me because he knows me, And this production house, they made it so incredibly professional, efficient, that we didn't spend much time doing much, but obviously we were required to be there since like 11 in the morning.
Whew, that's a long
To
day.
do this thing. So that's why at the end, not only because it came up beautifully and powerfully and people reacted to it, but heck, I'm going home after the whole day being here. It's funny. So there.
I can finally go see my wife.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I'm so happy. And they started calling me, you gotta see what's going on in the internet. I'm going like, what? No, you gotta see this. And then I know the super funny story I need to tell you that is a first as well. Man, it's a lot of first for you as well. I'm very happy for Jason. I am such a weirdo that I used Twitter in a way that only bounced or received, or I forwarded anything that I put in Instagram into both Twitter and my biggest Facebook account. I have 5 Facebook accounts. Imagine that. Okay. So the thing is, that's the only way I use Twitter. My brother, Juan Garcia Herreros, the genius, his name is Snow Owl, the genius bass player that was voted best bass player in the world in 2019. Wow. That's an amazing thing. He's another super genius. He's the one that got me into Instagram. He's a bass player, but he's a producer, composer. He's a professor at the University of Music in Vienna over there. Imagine that, for 14 years. And he's from Colombia. So it's a super. Oh, and he's head of a game thing that someday I'll let you know. He's the head of the composers of a new game thing that is coming out. And he's the chief of that whole department. And I'm playing for him in the music of one of 500, which is another very interesting game that is coming out in Europe, which is completely different from anything you guys have done before. I guarantee you that. And so he's doing the music for that. And he's the one that when he got me into Instagram, he said, Pedro, this is incredibly effective because once you do this, whatever you post here, you just forward to Twitter and to your big Facebook thing. That's the only way I used Twitter until this thing exploded. How embarrassing is that? Jason, it is so, my ignorance was so painful. I was looking for the word. I didn't even know how to post a video. I had to go Google how to post a video in Twitter. I had to find out how to retrieve messages. And then I saw, because what happened is I'm checking out my Instagram and people are and several times, and they know who they are. God bless them. They say, Pedro, check your Twitter. You're setting this thing on fire. Check your Twitter. Check your Twitter. And I'm going like, what? I don't even know how to use Twitter. So this is the story. And then I start seeing all this thing and I'm going like, oh my holy Lord, what is this? And to my family, I said, can somebody explain to me what's going on? I chatted with them.
Is this good?
My nephews from Spain. Tio, uncle, you got to do this. They're the ones that told me you got to make a little video, thanking them because this is an amazing thing. And there are other things coming. I told them I'm doing this with you today after Ash's interview. And they said, yeah, Tio, we're going to. And I had an idea already but before them that I wanted to do that they confirmed. But there are a couple of things. So there are good things coming also to really take advantage of the momentum. I think it's a very precious thing. And they're helping me with this. So that was the other funny story, having to deal with Twitter when I was Magnus almost ignoramunus.
Well, that I expect to see more big things from you on Twitter. I expect to see more big things from you in multiple soundtracks coming out. I imagine this will not be the last time that we see Flute Guy. In fact, Jeff Keighley has already said you'll probably be invited to the Hollywood Bowl in June.
He confirmed that the incredible challenge I have with that, Jason, and I'm praying to God, and I hope we can come up with, if they accept this, which I think it might not be the case, but if they do, it will be an amazing thing. Because what happens, Jason, as of now, I checked today, and that concert at the Hollywood Bowl with the LA Field, which I have played with several times, and it's conducted by my Venezuelan friend and genius, Maestro Gustavo Dudamel. You know, we come from the same organization, El Sistema from Venezuela, which is where I was born and raised. And I'm a first generation of El Sistema when Maestro Gustavo is the third generation of that, which, by the way, is an institution that revolutionized the world concerning classical symphonic music. And the torch bearer of this thing, the number one super star of this thing is Gustavo, Maestro Gustavo Dudamel. And I saw that the date for this is June 25th. Jason, June 25th, I'm supposed to be finishing my tour in Paris with Hans.
Oh, man.
We're on tour since April the 15th until June the 25th. And literally we have concerts the 23rd, 24th, 25th June. So
that's a tight turnaround.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could do that. Well,
I have an idea. I'm going to propose it suggest it to them to see if we can do something that, if we can, that would be amazing. But I'm not going to say anything else.
And I'm sure the gaming world would love to see you there. If not, I imagine we'll be seeing you again next December. Pedro, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for this wonderful chat. I cannot wait to see and hear what you have coming in the future. And all the luck in the world to you, my friend. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Pedro Eustache, this was Flute Guy, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Coming up after the break, we start with the top 5 stories from esports in 2022, from tournament winners to potential big-time losers. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 119. Thank you again, a major thank you again to Pedro Eustache for coming on here and talking about how he became the internet darling that he was, playing the flute in the Game Awards Orchestra. That is a type of musical talent I wish I had. To hear his resume and the people that he knows, the names he was referencing, is absolutely incredible. And I would love to get the opportunity to hear him play, as I said at the top of the show, once again, whether it's in an orchestra or just him jamming. I feel like no matter where he is, if he's playing music for you, you're going to be tapping your foot or shaking your hips. It's just the energy that he brings, and I wish him all the luck in the world. And I do look forward to speaking to him again on this show. Like I said, perhaps maybe face-to-face would be great sometime in the future. But now moving on to our second segment of the show. Let's talk about the top 5 esports stories of the year in this person's humble opinion. Now, both of these lists for the rest of the episode are subjective. I do not expect you to agree with everything I'm going to say, but these are just the top stories that I found most interesting in esports this year in 2022, and some that you should go back and look at look into if you can, if you have time to, because there were definitely the things that grabbed my attention as the year went on. And the first one is the only result on the entire list. I could have talked about, all the teams that won their tournaments. We could have done a boring recap like that. Nothing against the teams that won, of course. But I don't think I would be able to do that justice because, I wouldn't get every esport. I know there would be ones that I've forgotten. I'm actually thinking in my head of one that I would have spoken about that when I was initially planning this list, I didn't even mention. And that was Dark Zero Esports winning a major in Rainbow Six Siege. That wasn't on my original list, and when I changed it, I probably wouldn't have talked about it. So I knew I wouldn't be able to do it, but there was one result that I wanted to put on this list, and I wanted to make it first on the list, and that is the grand finals, the world's finals for League of Legends in 2022. An absolute Cinderella story, the underdog championship story that everyone in the world loves. Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30, if you're a wrestling fan, and that was DRX coming out of the play-ins, a grueling gauntlet from the very beginning of Worlds to the top of the ladder, and a full 5-game series against a powerhouse like T1, including potentially the most successful League of Legends player of all time, or famous even League of Legends player of all time in Faker. and coming out victorious. I have gone back and watched that match multiple times since then. Pro League is always fun to watch. I have gained a bit of a more appreciation for it in the last 2 years, ever since I started this podcast. I always dabbled a little bit, but since I've started this show, I've really gained a new appreciation to the overall presentation of what they do. I do think it's still a little complicated for those who don't take the time to learn it, for the casual fan, and there is area for growth there, but that's another story for another time. What I'm talking about here is the way that match, that fifth match, is presented, from the sounds of the casters to the plays on the screen to the explanations that are happening. It is high drama in the best way, and I love watching it over and over again. It is on, I think it's LOL Esports YouTube in the video on demand. It's on lolesports.com video on demand. It is out there. If you have not watched it yet, you should. If you have watched it, go back and watch it again. It is better on rewatch than you think. And also, too, I saw a headline that the esports photo of the year was recently chosen, and it is a picture of the aftermath of T1 with Faker looking on as his teammate, whose name eludes me at the moment, is just in tears, broken down on his desk with another teammate consoling him. It's a heartbreaking image and a powerful one, so it deserved that photo of the year. But more importantly, that match might go down as one of the best League of Legends matches I'll ever watch. And if you haven't done so yet, go back, specifically watch Game 5, but if you have time, watch the entire series. Fast forward if you have to, but it is worth every second of it. It is high drama. It is what esports could be on a prime stage if given the opportunity, and it's definitely one that I think is worthy of a top 5 esports story of the year. But as I said, it is the only result. We're not going to stick with results for the rest of this. We're going to get into some other things, good and bad. This next one is awesome, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I am the biggest Valorant expert. I do watch that occasionally as well, and I haven't dabbled as much as I've dabbled in League of Legends since I've started this podcast. But I do have a familiarity with Valorant, and even if I did not watch a single second of Valorant in my life, I would still put this on this list, and that is VCT Game Changers. The fact that there was a full-throated tournament, full-throated support for a league in a major esport run by a major company, one of the pioneers of esports, mind you, trying to start a brand new frontier in their esports stranglehold, and dedicating an entire tournament with full live streams, full coverage, broadcasts all over the world, a $500,000 prize pool, major sponsors like Verizon and Prime Gaming and Secret Lab and HyperX, and multiple teams from big outlets like G2 and Team Liquid and Cloud9 White, Shopify Rebellion, who's getting big. But it's all women. It's all women and marginalized genders. I do want to make sure I include that. It's all women and marginalized genders. There's no traditional, I don't want to say traditional, but there's no, the teams that you would normally see in an esports broadcast were not here. These were people who don't normally get the spotlight, deserve the spotlight, absolutely, and finally got that which they deserve. And it was awesome. The action was great. It was just as good, in my opinion, as any other Valorant tournament. I loved that it was a thing. I loved watching it. That small part of it that I could do was watch it. The viewership was very good. Peak viewers at 239,000 per Liquipedia. That's amazing. Almost 5.5 million hours watched with an average viewership of 114,000. Unreal stuff. And the final with G2 and Shopify Rebellion was exciting. Again, not going to get into results here. Congratulations to G2 Gozen for winning the whole thing, but we're not going to focus on that. Just the tournament in general. The fact that it existed is awesome, and I fully hope that they keep supporting this and that you keep supporting it. If you want more tournaments like this, I would love other esports to take Game Changers on. League of Legends Game Changers would be awesome. Overwatch Game Changer, they would call it something else, but an Overwatch version would be amazing. Hell, give me some female and marginalized gender only fighting game tournaments. Get Cuddlecore in there, get Purple Sharpie in there, get them all in there. It would be amazing. I would love to see more of these types of tournaments because they deserve the spotlight too. And obviously, being a white-skinned male, as far as, demographics are concerned, I don't have anything to worry about going to an esports event or something like that. I hit the genetic lottery, let's call it. Is that fair? Absolutely not. But one way to maybe turn this tide and get people to stop being, I can't say the word I want to say because this plays on radio, is to continue to present these people, these women and women and marginalized genders. I'm screwing this up. Every time I don't want to sound like I'm diminishing. I don't want to. These tournaments need to be more prevalent, and I thought that VCT Game Changers was a good first step. Could more be done? Absolutely. But the fact that it was even on at all and they were given that opportunity was awesome. And I hope that there is more and more games latch on and try something in their own way. Imagine, and again, I'm going back to fighting games. Imagine a tournament at EVO that's all women and marginalized genders. It's their own separate thing. Now, the argument does come, would they want that? Would people want that? Or would they want to be part of the normal pool? And they could do both. Why can't they do both? You just have one that highlights people, and then you have them in the regular tournament too if they have time for it. There's obviously scheduling that needs to be done that I am not an expert at. My point is, I loved seeing this, and I want more of it, and they all deserve more of it. So let's have more of it. That's the point I'm trying to get at here, is more things like Game Changers across all of esports, please. Moving on now to number 3. I mentioned EVO a couple of times, so I should definitely mention this one, and that was the major acquisition of the Evolution Championship Series by Sony. EVO got that Sony money and that Pokimane money because her company joined in too. The Cannons are still involved, even though they're both, I think, working at Riot on Project L, which is its own very cool thing. That maybe we'll talk about that next week in the most anticipated section. But Sony buying EVO, I think, is awesome. It shows a investment in esports, which is always good. And I still am of the belief, and I will be of the belief until the day I stop playing video games, which is the day I die, that fighting games have the most potential to be the breakout star of esports in general. People know what Overwatch is, people know what League of Legends is, but as far as the casual, non-gamer viewer, I stick by my belief that fighting games are the most easily approached by someone who is not familiar. Just based on the information that's on the screen. I've tweeted about this before. I've talked about this before. If you stick a screenshot of a broadcast from a fighting game next to a screenshot from a broadcast of Overwatch, of League of Legends, of what have you, the amount of information that can be coherently gleaned from the fighting game screen is not as much, obviously, but it's everything you need to know. Everything you need to know about that particular match is right there on that screen. Technically, everything you need to know is on the League of Legends screen as well, but there are pieces of information that have to be left out so it didn't look completely incoherent, like the names of the equipment being equipped or what they do or stuff like that. There is more information you would need to get yourself if you weren't familiar with the game by looking at League of Legends. Same with Overwatch. It's a little bit better, I would say, Overwatch is, but fighting games is simplest, the most coherent, and I think Sony getting behind EVO and putting their money in this tournament is going to be massive for it, and it's already showing. EVO 2022 was awesome. I loved every match I watched. It looked like the hall was booming. A couple friends of mine went out there. I didn't get a chance to go this year, but I watched as much as I could across multiple devices, and it was a doozy. Absolutely loved it. If you like fighting games at all, you should check out any local fighting game scene, but check out Evo rebroadcasts and videos on demand as well. Evo has their own YouTube channel, 7 or 8 different Twitch channels that you could get their broadcasts from. All the games that were played, Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, Multiverses, Mortal Kombat, all of them are good. And I have a feeling it's only going to get better and better. So Sony buying Evo, I think, is huge for Evo, but there was seemingly maybe like 25% one sort of, I don't want to say casualty, but one extra effect. And that's actually number 4. Number 4 on this list is the mind-boggling approach that Nintendo took with Super Smash Bros. This year. When they announced Panda Global in an official setting would be doing Smash Bros. Tournaments, I thought that could have been very good. I thought getting Smash on a special stage with its own thing, while I would prefer it to have stayed with the normal circuit, your Evos, your CEOs, your stuff like that, having this instead was better than nothing. We'd be able to watch Pro, top tier Ultimate, see how these new characters, this humongous roster, gleaned with one another, look for new secrets, see if low-tier characters could rise up the ranks, and how far high-tier characters could fall. How far they could fall, excuse me. But then, Smash World Tour, which was an independent one running concurrently, was forced to close. Nintendo and Panda were all engaged in this brouhaha. It is honestly the culmination of years of Nintendo having this prime esports egg and not knowing how to properly hatch it. They just have no idea what to do with it. It is so foreign to them that people want to play video games for anything other than fun, that when they have this very successful competitive game on their hands, they know nothing of what to do with it. They have the occasional online tournament where they think that giving away like controllers or eShop currency is enough. In fact, they're now approaching 2 different multiplayer games with major competitive scenes. Splatoon 3 is another one. People play Splatoon 3 online all the time. If that wanted to become an esport, I don't think Nintendo would know what to do with it. If Nintendo put the same approach to their esports as Riot does with theirs, Nintendo would be the Riot of the East when it came to esports. They would have Smash Brothers, they would have Splatoon, they would have had ARMS for a little while, not as popular, of course, but like as a undercard to the Smash Brothers main event. Who knows what else they could have done? Hell, they could have made a Mario Superstars Baseball League, because that has quite a cult following on YouTube as well. But they just cannot wrap their heads around the fact that people play video games competitively, not just to have fun, and they ain't about it. So it makes no sense to me that they would take this approach. And I hope that 2023 is the year they come around and realize what they have on their hands. I hope they get Evo on the phone, Sony owning it or not, and get a prime placement, because let's not forget, the highest, at least I still think it is, the highest enrollment in a single Evo tournament ever was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Evo 2019, close to, if not over, 4,000 competitors. Nothing at 2022 came close, I don't think. I'd have to check the numbers again. But it was the most popular game at Evo, and then in Evo's grand return, it wasn't there. And that is mind-boggling. How are they not properly capitalizing on this? I don't even want to get into Panda and that, background chicanery that where the CEO, Dr. Allen, had to step down. 80% of their pro gamers left. So who knows where Panda is? And if Panda falls, then Nintendo's back to square one with esports, and we won't have competitive Smash. It is annoying. It's old-fashioned, and frankly, it's stupid. So I hope in 2023 they come around and figure things out. I don't think they will. But the last one, which I think is going to have the most far-reaching effects if you read like financial analysts' reports and things like that, is what happened with FTX. Now, I know what you're thinking. FTX is not an esports story, but it is. If you recall, Team Solo Mid changed their name to TSM FTX. Plus, they were advertising all over the place. So FTX is very much entrenched. And in a more broader sense, crypto in general is very much entrenched in the esports industry. And if that should fall, esports is in trouble. It's already in some trouble, because forecasters and investors are pumping the brakes on esports compared to 2020 because they're afraid of the crypto influence. FTX was a huge red flag. They need to see a little more stability in the market and in the people running these companies before they start to invest again. They don't want an esports organization to be the next FTX-style alleged Ponzi scheme. So what happens then is money stops flowing in, and unless you're a Riot or a Nintendo, if they would, get up off their backsides, you have all these lesser tournaments, lesser like indie scenes or what have you, fall by the wayside. The leagues have issues. Overwatch and Call of Duty, they have their own issues with sponsors and stuff like that, but they start to see a little bit of a drop, and suddenly we may not have any esports at all. Now, granted, that's a very, worst case scenario, glasses half empty, actually empty sort of outlook. But there is trouble in paradise, where that boat used to be sailing for the Golden Castle, right? It used to be like esports were the future. Now it's esports may already be in the past and we don't know it yet. I don't want to think like that because I love it. But this whole FTX thing, the more that comes out of it, the more entrenched esports organizations may be revealed to be, whether it's in FTX specifically or crypto in general, could have a lasting effect on the entire industry. I would hate to see it go. I would hate to see it go down the route of these things have to dissolve. Again, I don't think it's going to get that extreme, but it's something to keep an eye on, and a good way to end this segment on the top 5 esports stories of 2022, because it's one that will certainly bleed into 2023. So just to recap, we have DRX over T1, the VCT Game Changers, I can talk, I promise, Sony buying Evo, Nintendo's never-ending saga with competitive Smash, and FTX's fall and how it may affect esports in general in the future as my top 5 esports stories for this year. Coming up after the break, we will get into the general video game storylines of the year, a couple of which I may have already alluded to, but we'll get to that in the next segment. Stick around. Welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 119. Again, thank you, Pedro Eustache, in our first segment, coming on to talk to me about the Game Awards. Looking forward to everything he has doing. Last segment, we talked about the biggest esports stories of the year. This segment, we are going to talk about the biggest general video game stories of the year. And you can imagine what some of them are, but we'll leave them at the end. In the beginning here, I would like to talk about one that I am admittedly biased about. I am super excited about this. From when I went from being very worried to very, very excited about this certain thing. And it's something that I have always harped on, even in the 2 years I've done this show. And for my entire, 13, 14 year freelance career. And that is what I am calling E3 the Phoenix. So E3 2022, back in March, was canceled. They were planning on some sort of live hybrid sort of thing, and they just said, you know what, can't figure this out. We're going to wait another year and come back stronger than ever. And then it was announced that Reed Pop, who runs PAXs, who runs all kinds of different geek culture, nerd culture style conventions, is going to be bringing E3 back in partnership with the ESA. They will have days that are media only. They will have days that are public as well. Heck, they'll have days that are public only. And that, my friends, is so exciting to me. I know we ended the last segment looking forward to 2023. In this one, we're going to start it and then go backwards, because I am of the belief that gaming maybe doesn't need, but wants, it should want a centralized, coherent, long-form event like what E3 was between 2010 and 2018, 2019, it was that also. It was a little weaker. But like 2010 to 2015, let's say, are the sweet spots. The gaming industry benefits from that. Whether people want to admit it or not, whether people want to say E3 is old-fashioned or dead or old news, dead game, whatever it is, the industry benefits from having the world's spotlight on it for a week in June. And I do mean the world's spotlight. When I used to go to E3, I went to every E3 between 2010 and 2019, with the exception of 2013. There were media, general media and gaming-focused media, from all over the world. That is not exaggeration. I was playing a demo, and a French news outlet recorded me and posted it on their website. I talked to an Australian reporter about an Xbox conference, I think 2014, 2015. He just pulled me out of the crowd because I got really excited about something, and he wanted to ask me questions right there on the stage. I talked to a Chinese outlet once, CGTN, the American branch. That interview is on YouTube somewhere. BBC was there. I talked to them in 2019. The entire world comes to this thing. The entire world puts its focus on video games during E3's conferences. Whether it's the press briefings, the media briefings between Xbox and Nintendo, Sony, what have you, or the convention itself. It is a week-long celebration of video games, and to hear that it's coming back under Reed Pop's umbrella is huge for me. I think it's going to be one of the biggest success stories of 2023. I truly do. I truly think E3 this year is going to be a huge comeback kid sort of story, where the media is happy because they get days to focus on their work. The public is happy because it's open to them. The conferences are all back. If the major players sign on, which I hope they do, it'll just be a humongous show, and it'll be, E3 is back. That is one of the headlines I'm hoping for the most in 2023. E3 is back. It's been counted out before, and it came back. I think you can do it again under Reed Pop's guise, and keeping it half media, half public, all industry is brilliant, and I can't wait to see what they do. I truly cannot. I hope that the big players come back. You have that one wing. I would love to go back to a time where we have the wing with Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo all in one spot. I really would. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Sony's going to still, stay out unless they come back in a huge, huge way. I don't see that happening. But I think this is the year E3 comes back. I do. I really, really do. That's my big prediction for 2023, which we'll get into in 2 weeks' time when we look ahead to 2023, both games and storylines. So that E3 going away and then coming back again, big storyline from 2022 for me. Hopefully it continues into the good things in 2023. Moving on now to the second topic that I would like to discuss. That is Google finally pulling the plug on Stadia. It took them longer than I thought it would. Stadia had a, 3.5, maybe 4-year run going there, and people who liked it loved it, man. There were people with hundreds of hours in some of these games, but the major membership wasn't there. The quality of games that were exclusive to the platform, they were good, but they were not the gangbuster AAA that they needed to be, and Google said, you know what, we're out. Stories have been coming out ever since then about how people can save their progress on Stadia and move it to another console. Hitman just announced that the method for that. A couple of games that were exclusive to Stadia are going to be moving to consoles, luckily, so they won't just fall into the ether. It's it's surprising, but it's disappointing. Gaming streaming over the cloud has a future. We're just not there yet. I don't think the internet infrastructure in this country, in America, is good enough to sustain it for millions of users over a single network. Will we get there? Hopefully, but right now I don't see it. I don't think it's because like Xbox Cloud Gaming, I use that sometimes, and the connection is not the greatest. I get stutters, I get glitches and stuff like that. Um, Sony actually does a decent one with remote play. I was back in February. I went to Disney World with my family, and using my iPad and a DualSense that I brought with me, I was able to play my home console over Disney's Wi-Fi, sitting in my hotel room at night when everybody went to bed, or if the kids were taking naps and we were waiting to go back to a park, I could load up the remote play app on my phone over the Wi-Fi, connect to my home console, and play my games on my time. That was cool, but even then had its issues. I just don't think we're there yet. I really don't. And the death of Stadia kind of proves that point for me. That cloud gaming, gaming via streaming is not necessarily where it wants to be yet. Even Microsoft, in the we'll talk about later on in this episode, what's going on with them, have mentioned in internal documents that they're not quite sure about the cloud streaming technology yet. So it has a future, I think. I just don't know if that future is 5 years away, 10 years away, or further. But that will remain to be seen. But it will not remain to be seen with Google, because Stadia is dead. R.I.P. Stadia. So number three. Excuse me. Number three, as I take a quick sip, you can probably hear my throat getting raspy as we finish up the episode here, is a big one. And this is one that I fully support 100%. And if you don't, you need to take a long look in the mirror. And that is the unionization of studios across the industry. Raven Software was a huge one under Activision's umbrella. You heard the stories about union busting and trying to dismay them, but the vote went through, and they have a union now, and they will fight for better worker rights. And I hope that more places across the industry take that lead and vote for these unions. Get people to support their rights and fight for their rights and everything that they need in order to work to the best of their ability in a healthy and safe environment with the funds that they need and the insurance that they need and all that good stuff. To see more and more of these companies either file for or vote for or gain unionization in multiple industries is great, but obviously I'm talking about the video game industry specifically. The guide that came out, I think it was Polygon, put out a small zine, like an e-zine, e-magazine, whatever you want to call it, for prospective companies who want to unionize on how to do so, what the steps are, what the legal steps are. It's a fascinating read that any studio who may listen to this should check that out to get some ideas on how to proceed, because unionization was something that was huge before, and then they went away because the employers realized that the employees were able to fight for what they needed and what the employers didn't want to give them through unionization. And now people are getting wise to the fact that without them, they may not get the things that they want or need. So they have to bring them back, they have to vote for them, and they have to fight for them. So I'm hoping this trend continues. I'm hoping that we start to see more studios, more companies try to protect themselves and try to get the compensation and the benefits that they need to live healthily and happily. It's a good trend, and one I hope that continues throughout 2023 and beyond, because these people work way too hard for way too long to not be fairly compensated for what they do. So good luck. Congratulations to those who have already unionized. I hope more and more studios follow suit, and eventually maybe we get one big developers union across the entire industry. That would be an amazing goal. I think that might be a little out of reach anytime soon. It's going to take a lot of work, a long time, but I think it's might be possible. But the fact that there's any unionization happening at all and people are starting to really get behind it is awesome. And I hope it continues. From unionization to acquisition, the fourth story in this countdown is all of the acquisitions, acquisition mania, I was calling it, of studios by bigger conglomerates and things like that. It has been a really, really weird year as far as gaming companies buying other gaming companies. I will get into the big one. The big one is its own story. That's the fifth and last part of this segment. But now, I think it should be addressed that there were multiple acquisitions across the entire industry, some of which you may even have forgotten. Take Two, who owns 2K and Rockstar and others, acquired Zynga, the mobile company. Just what they need, a mobile company to handle all the mobile titles they want to get into. Sony bought Bungie, Destiny developer, they went from Activision, went from Microsoft to Activision to now Sony. They have a new owner. Not sure what's going to happen there. Tencent went bonkers. Astragon, Inflection Studios, 1C Entertainment. I could keep going. Embracer Group. I could do an entire segment on all of the companies that Embracer Group bought this year, whether it was Beamdog or Dark Horse Media or the Square Enix Europe assets like Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal and stuff like that, and all those IPs. It's just been a absolutely bonkers year for mergers and acquisitions. And I don't know really how I feel about that. On the one hand, smaller companies getting more of a budget with larger conglomerates is a good thing. But if those studios are then shuttered out of nowhere, like Anoma was, the former Square Enix Montreal, which developed Hitman, Sniper, and a couple other mobile games, changed their name and then in 3 months was closed by Embracer Group. That's not ideal. You hate to see stuff like that, but are all these companies merging initially good for? I don't know. It's hard to really put a thumb on it. On the one hand, M&A is bad. If companies get too big and they have monopolies or oligopolies, whatever you want to call it, it's not ideal. But also, some of these smaller companies may not survive without another one who sees a lot of promise in them eating them up. So it's a very complicated situation. One that I do not expect to be done yet. I think Embracer is not done yet. I think Tencent is always there. There's more that could be happening in 2023. We will see. I don't know of anything in particular. I don't want to call it speculation. I don't know if there's any actual, things being discussed or negotiated. I don't know anything about that. All I know is what's in front of me, and what's in front of me is Embracer went nuts, Tencent went nuts, and then we had the big one, and we're getting into the final topic of the show, and that is Microsoft's announcement in January to acquire Activision Blizzard for $69.7 billion. The House of Call of Duty, the House of World of Warcraft, of Diablo, would be coming to Team Xbox, and that has caused quite a stir in the entire industry. It has been a storyline that has dominated the entire year, whether it's folks going through the regulation process and all the questions that have come up from that, all the different countries who have either denied or accepted or asked more questions about the merger. It's been a fascinating thing to see some of these, like Phil Spencer execs coming out and being like, no, everything's on the level, we're fine. And then you have guys from Sony like Jim Ryan that are like, nah, we know what you're trying to do, stop it. And now the FTC is getting involved. They sued to block, which some people thought meant the deal was dead, but in reality is more like, we'll let it go through, but we're going to need some concessions from you, and we're going to plan those concessions out right now. So let's talk about that. It's just been a fascinating saga throughout the entire year, and I really don't know at this point whether or not it's going to go through. I would say it's a very good choice, a very good possibility. I do not think that the deal is dead, as some would like to believe, but what that deal is going to look like, as opposed to what the original terms were, is going to be interesting. We'll see where it ends up when all is said and done. But right now, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the merger ends up being at the end, or even if Microsoft succeeds. If the FTC blocks it, it's not going to go through. I don't know. But I'll keep watching. That's another one that's going to go through all the way to 2023 until we hear that the deal is done. It's going to be one that we're going to be keeping a close eye on, because it could also be the start of even more mergers and acquisitions in 2023. We'll just have to wait and see. So, with that, those are the top 5 stories from video games this year, in my humble opinion. And if you had any ideas for storylines in esports or video games, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at BigManFinelli. I'd be happy to hear what I may have missed, what you may not have, what I may have forgotten. I'm sure there's a lot. I forget things every single day. But it has been a great year for games. It has been a great year for esports. Like I said, the WizWit Awards 2022, next week we will give those out. That'll go live Friday the 23rd, and then it'll be on the radio here in Philadelphia Saturday at 3 o'clock. So Christmas Eve, we will be handing out some presents. And then New Year's Eve, we'll look ahead to 2023 here on the show. With that, that is the end of episode number 119 of Cheesesteaks and Controllers, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, iHeartRadio, streaming wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, what have you, on the radio every Saturday at 3 p.m. If you are listening to these particular words, as I say every single week, that means you have reached the end of this episode. You have stuck with me till the final outro, and I cannot express enough how much I appreciate that. The fact that you were able to give me the time to listen, to hopefully be entertained, engaged, educated, even if there was something you didn't know about before. I hope I was able to bring that to you. And if I did, all I ask is that you subscribe to the podcast and you come back. That's all you got to do. Just got to hit subscribe, make sure it's in your podcast list, and then every Friday you'll be able to hear these voices again with all the interviews that I may do, with all of the topics that we'll talk about. In fact, I'll get into maybe next week or the week after all the interviews we did in 2022 and ones that I would love to have in 2023, but we'll get into that later. For now, I hope you have an excellent weekend. I hope you have an even better week right behind it. And we will be back next week with the 2022 WizWit Awards, giving out the top 10 games of the year, plus a couple specialties right here on Cheesesteaks and Controllers. Goodbye, everybody.